A reading from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 22, verse 47 to 48. While he was still speaking, a crowd came up, and the man who was called Judas, one of the 12, was leading them. He approached Jesus to kiss him, but Jesus asked him, "Judas, are you betraying the Son of Man with a kiss?"
Welcome back to the Gay Pretender, and for those of you who celebrated, have a blessed Holy Week. After this video, I do guarantee that you will not be having a happy one. We are here today to discuss two key figures in the Catholic New Testament and in true Gay Pretender fashion link their existences to gay bait. These figures are the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ and his little traitor, Judas Iscariot. We'll have a quick introduction for those of you who aren't Catholic or just never paid attention in church. Jesus Christ is the Son of God, born of the Virgin Mary, conceived by a miracle, and destined to save the world. When he grows older, he eventually leaves his home and job as a carpenter in Jerusalem to preach God's word. It is his mission, no, the very purpose of his very existence, to go forth and spread his Father's teachings. Along the way, he picks up 12 apostles, one of which is Judas Iscariot. There's no universally accepted version of Judas' origins pre-discipleship. What we know from the Gospels is that he had disagreements with Jesus' teachings and perhaps found them difficult to digest. The Gospel of John implies that he is the treasurer, for lack of a better term, but that's just a minor detail.
If Jesus' identity revolves around being a savior, the Judas in history is only known to be a traitor. The epithet Iscariot separates him from all other people named Judas in the Bible, and even so, the very name Judas has been associated with betrayal. He has been swayed by the devil, and he betrays Jesus for 30 silver coins. As is common in the Bible, we don't really know anything about Judas, about his personality, about his way of thinking. The Bible is written in the perspective of God, which only records the actions of the characters and hardly ever their reasoning. The Gospel of John says Judas was a crook who pretended to care for the poor, only to steal back the money given to them. But we don't know if that's true, because it wasn't as if Judas could fight back. Anyway, Judas sells out Jesus to the guards in the tribunal, which leads to the crucifixion, the death in exchange of humanity's sins, and the ascension to heaven. As a side note, Judas kills himself out of guilt shortly after learning about the crucifixion march.
So Judas' betrayal was necessary for Jesus to be able to save mankind. Jesus knew about this beforehand. He warned the disciples about the existence of a traitor. He directly pointed out Judas at the Last Supper. He was very much anticipating for this evil to flare up so he could stamp it out with light. If everything was planned since the beginning, one might wonder, what did Jesus and Judas feel about being key pawns in the story of God? What relationship did they truly have with each other? We can never know these things, but we can imagine, and that's exactly what people have been doing with Jesus and Judas over the centuries. To begin with, the blatantly homophobic Catholic Church will never agree to you spotting any semblance of homoeroticism in their beloved Bible. I believe people have been killed for implying such in, the Middle Ages. However, any literal deaths or stoning have not stopped speculation on Jesus and Judas' relationship and respective sexualities.
A manuscript called The Lost Gospel of Judas Iscariot was discovered in the late 1900s. This is a Gnostic, non-canonical text, which means that it wasn't accepted by the church. It's significant as the only religious text that doesn't depict Judas as someone inherently evil. In fact, the story goes on to say that Judas was special amongst the other apostles, and Jesus taught him alone the true gospel. In this version, the betrayal was staged, and Judas was merely following orders. If you compare this to modern media, it's as if he was made to do the genocide route to achieve a better ending for everyone's sake. So there you have two popular iterations of the Jesus-Judas relationship, or jeju for short, not to be confused with the island in South Korea. The first has Judas as the betrayer and Jesus as mankind's hero. The second claims that the first is superficial and that Judas was special to Jesus. And just Well, in general, it's gay to be a man intrinsically linked to other men.
Now that we've entered that line of thought, this question is begging to be asked. Is Jesus gay? Or better yet, is it feasible to interpret him as a gay man? Dr. Reverend Bob Shorgoss says yes. In fact, he wrote several books discussing Jesus' queerness. Our favorite title is Jesus Acted Up, a Gay and Lesbian Manifesto. Many LGBT Christians choose to view Jesus as a member of the community for their own benefit, and the whole concept of it can be something deeply personal and spiritual. It revolves around the ideal version of Christianity, where God accepts all sorts of people and all forms of love, and His kingdom does not believe in discrimination. But I digress. There is vague biblical support of Jesus being LGBT, or at least an ally. In the Gospel of Matthew, particularly parts 8:5 to 8:13, a centurion comes to Jesus asking him to heal his servant. In unsanitized texts, it's implied that the servant and the centurion are in a pederastic relationship. The centurion says, "Lord, I am not worthy that you should enter under my roof, but only say the word, and my servant shall be healed." If you have attended Catholic Mass, this phrase should be familiar to you. Jesus was so astounded by the centurion's faith that he declared it greatest in Israel, and the servant was of course healed.
It's important to note that we at the Gay Pretender recognize that pederasty, or a frankly predatory sexual relationship between a significantly older man and, well, a twink, isn't at all a good representation of homosexuality in world history. So we'll be moving on to personal indications of Jesus' queerness. There is, of course, Judas' long-standing love rival, Jesus' beloved Apostle John, who was physically affectionate with Jesus and reclined on his inner tunic or whatever. It is important to note that the aforementioned beloved disciple has only been referred to in the Gospel of John by John himself, so who knows if he was just being disillusioned and gay-baited. Jesus also refers to Lazarus as beloved. Jesus' whole existence is arguably gay too, because why are you as a man living and dying to save all of mankind?
Neither will we judge anyone who thinks that Judas is all queer. Well, that depends on what you have to say about it. For decades, the stereotype of the gay villain has prevailed in media. The intricacies of this cannot be fully discussed on a video that is focused on Jesus and Judas more than anything else, but it's clear that this phenomenon is meant to induce subliminal associations of queerness with evilness. In short, it is homophobic. Such stereotypes are often portrayed as envious, flamboyant, selfish, predatory, and in men's cases, physically weak/lesser/feminized. Think about the most pathetic, sniveling guy you know that isn't an incel, and you have a classic gay-coded Disney villain.
Why do we bring this up? Because this isn't a phenomenon that only exists in modern media. It goes all the way back to even the Bible and even before the Gospels. George Louis Borges' The Form of the Sword, the character John Vincent Moon, is not only adapted from Judas Iscariot, but also Genesis' Cain. Again, if you are not familiar with the Old Testament, Adam and Eve, the first humans, have children named Cain and Abel. Cain kills Abel out of jealousy after God finds the latter's offerings more acceptable, marking the first murder in the Bible, and if it is to be believed, human history. For this sin, God curses him to wander the earth and marks him on the forehead so that people will know not to kill him and free him from his endless suffering.
Now that you know who Cain is, we can bring you back to Herbert J. Brandt's analysis of The Form of the Sword in 1996, which raises some incredibly salient points. To quote, "By linking the image of Cain and Judas with the image of a cowardly, envious, feminized man, Borges makes the case that homosexuals pose a danger and a threat to the security and safety of us all. In order to protect us from their envy, jealousy, duplicity, disloyalty, and deceitfulness, homosexuals need to be identified and labeled as quickly and easily as possible." The review goes on to discuss the readability of homosexual bodies, which often bear marks that signal their queerness to others. Moon has a crescent-shaped scar on his face. Cain had a mark on his forehead that, though undescribed in the Bible, was said to instantly let the viewer know of God's intentions.
What then is Judas's hallmark? Do we strictly consider it to be the kiss of betrayal? Jesus and Judas have been directly depicted in many films, plays, and works of art over the ages, not to mention all the media their relationship has inspired. How can we identify a jeju? And what even is a jeju? We'll show you some examples in the following section.
Like Judas who betrayed Jesus for 30 silver coins, our greed knows no bounds when it comes to desiring monetization. As of those videos making, the gay pretender is yet to be monetized. Yes, we are doing all this research and channeling our insanity to spread the truth about gay bait for free. Yes, we are doing this of our own free will, and yes, we want money. So we implore you to share our video and subscribe so that we will be empowered to create more. With that being said, since we are doing all this for free, do take note that we were not able to personally consume everything that will be mentioned. However, we did try our best to seek out dissertations and reviews that will aid us along the way. The references will all be listed so that you can check at your own discretion. And who knows, if we are actually monetized in the future, you might go crazy enough to actually do even more detailed work in jeju. In other words, please pay us too.
Onwards to the debauchery. Jeju is present in all forms of media, whether you realize it or not. It is portrayed in Jesus films, biblical reenactments, in Vocaloid, and even in your favorite Western show about cannibalism. And so, let's dive right into Judas Iscariot, Damned or Redeemed, a critical examination of the portrayal of Judas in Jesus films from 1902 to 2014, a thesis written by Carol Ann Hebron. Given the nature of our channel, The Gay Pretender, we will only be discussing the films that insinuate queerness. Although it is very interesting to learn about how the role of Judas changes to more than just the villain of the story and perceived traitor over the years. We highly encourage you to read a copy of the thesis if you have the time after this video. For now, put on the gay bait glasses.
Renowned orator John Chrysostom once described Judas' actions as inexcusable. Oh, what depravity had the traitor's soul received! For with what kind of eyes did he then look at his master? With what mouth did he kiss him? Oh, accursed purpose! What did he devise? What did he dare? If you may recall, Judas betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. At present, that is enough to buy one Nintendo Switch. While this became a popular iconography trope of avarice, Judas is arguably most recognized by the kiss he gave Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane rather than the greed he was said to have exhibited. This infamous kiss has left its mark in different forms of media and has become a bittersweet sign of treachery. Some famous examples are the betrayal of Christ, the kiss of Judas, the taking of Christ, Baccio di Giuda, and the French thing, which you may have seen on Twitter in a thread. This kiss has been captured in more than just paintings and has been reenacted repeatedly in films.
In the 1988 film, The Last Temptation of Christ, Judas kisses Jesus on the mouth at the betrayal in Gethsemane. This garnered mixed feelings from the general public and critics, with some noting the homoerotic undertones in their body language and the way they speak to each other, calling out the intense relationship code marked by both tension and love. The thesis writer Carol disagrees, but you can decide for yourself. Judas's deep faith manifested a passionate relationship with Jesus, as noted by many. Their close friendship, along with Judas's persistence in keeping Jesus from succumbing to temptation, eventually led to humankind's salvation. Indeed, Judas seemed more than a beloved and faithful disciple. This observation will continue into the 1999 miniseries Jesus. No words are needed for what you are about to witness.
Take a moment to reflect on that, but keep in mind as we venture into the 2006 film Collar of the Cross.
I know you love me, Judas. Find you. Accept me. I love you, Master. Judas, your way is not my way. But you go do what you must do. Master, is it him? Judas. Yet, you let him steal all our donations and run off to betray you. You betray me with a kiss, Judas.
But it doesn't stop there. A role reversal is showcased in the 1973 musical film Godspell, wherein Jesus kisses Judas instead in Gethsemane. In Godspell Notes for Directors, composer and lyricist Stephen Schwartz states that this is to convey Jesus forgiving Judas in advance for what he is about to do. Quote, "This forgiveness is the hardest thing of all to bear." Jesus Christ Superstar is a rock opera based on the Gospel's accounts of the Passion, which examines the psychology of Jesus and the disciples. The storyline heavily focuses on Judas's perspective and his growing dissatisfaction with Jesus' preachings. JCS 1973's Judas is a sight that you must witness for yourself. There's no better way to explain what goes on with him and Jesus than showing clips of the dialogue sang between them. Let's start off with the opening song Heaven on Their Minds, sang by Judas. "Listen, Jesus, I don't like what I see. All I ask is that you listen to me. And remember, I've been your right-hand man all along. I remember when this whole thing began. No talk of God then, we called you a man. And believe me, my admiration for you hasn't died. But every word you say today gets twisted round some other way. And they'll hurt you if they think you've lied. Listen, Jesus, to the warning I give. Please remember that I want us to live. But it's sad to see our chances weakening with every hour. If you knew why I do it, I don't care why you do it. To think I admired you, for now I despise you. You liar, you Judas, you want me to do it. What if I just stayed here and ruined your ambition? Christ, you deserve it. Hold on to your gay bait glasses and listen to the lyrics of Mary Magdalene's solo song properly.
I don't know how to love him. I don't know why he moves me.
And now a part of the song, Judas's death.
I don't know how to love him. I don't know why he moves me.
Yes, it is real. They sing the exact same lyrics but continue it differently. Mary is scared about how she would feel if Jesus loved her back, hence the next part being, "Yet, if he said he loved me, I'd be lost. I'd be frightened. I couldn't cope, just couldn't cope. I'd turn my head. I'd back away. I wouldn't want to know. He scares me so. I want him so. I love him so." Meanwhile, Judas is scared because when he's cold and dead, will he let me be? Does he love me too? Does he care for me? My mind is in darkness. God, I'm sick. I've been used, and you knew all the time. God, I'll never know why you chose me for your crime. Well, take that as you will.
Here's a little bonus scene that will serve as food for thought after all that kissing.
This is Vaticano 666. There is no one here to absolve you at the moment. Please leave your name, religion, and details of your most recent sin after the tone, and His Holiness may get back to you.
This is Judas Iscariot, Bloodacre, a couple of millennia too late. My only sin, as I understand it, was that I facilitated Christianity. My message, therefore, is this. Isn't it about time you said thank you?
The Lost Gospel of Judas Iscariot is a series of non-canonical Gnostic texts which depict conversations between Jesus Christ and Judas Iscariot. In these, Judas is believed to have been the only apostle who knew the full truth of Jesus' teachings. Jesus asks Judas to betray him to achieve their intended ending and fulfill the destiny of Jesus ascending into heaven. Quote, "Why are you getting worked up, 13th demon? Speak now, and I shall bear with you." By the way, we have a Twitter bot at 13th Diamond that tweets jeju quotes once every 3 hours. If you'd like to contribute, feel free to message the account. If you just want to follow or check it out, go ahead. The Judas comic is the latest release out of our literature section and is arguably one of the most compelling perspectives on Jesus and Judas. The events of this comic take place during the 3 days that Jesus is dead and taking on the brunt of humanity's sins in hell. Judas comes across Satan, who tempts him toward greater lows of evil. And it is so incredibly easy to be spiteful when your life has been laid out for you. The first chapter of the comic is about the slow, sickening realization that Judas's whole life and his suffering was tailored for betrayal and eventually Jesus' martyrism. Anyone would be upset to be used as a pawn, never mind that it is one life against the whole of humanity's. And yet, Judas follows Jesus down to the deepest pits of hell, where not even Satan himself dares to go. He sees that Jesus is being weighed down by the weight of his greatest and perhaps only personal sin, which is using Judas. It is then that Judas knows that Jesus himself is trapped in the story of God as well, and that he has no choice but to play his role. The message here is that you may be stuck in the story, but you always have the choice to love. And so Judas forgives Jesus, liberating him of his sin. Thus, Jesus is able to ascend to the heavens and rule at the right hand of his Father's kingdom as intended. Judas remains in hell but comes to terms with his unfair punishment. He is no longer concerned by judgment and actively chooses to do kind deeds for other sinners, as Jesus would have wanted and as he himself has come to want.
To kick off our review of jeju in literature, we begin with Dazai Osamu's 1940 story, An Urgent Appeal. So it's a short story in Judas' point of view. The text is written in the form of a monologue, some parts internal and some parts external, for when Judas flees the Last Supper up to when he sells Jesus out to the authorities. It adapts a unique perspective in which Judas loves Jesus but cannot bring himself to impede on either of their beliefs for the sake of continuity. So he later comes to the conclusion that he must have Jesus killed for the greater good and for the sake of his love towards Jesus. Dazai allegedly recited these lines to his wife. No one knows what she said about it. So here are some gay-ass quotes. Even if my Father in heaven does not understand me, even no one on earth should know me. If you alone would understand me, that would be enough. I love you, my Lord. No matter how deeply the other disciples love you, I still love you incomparably more. There's something I always think about in secret. In spring, right about now, the peach flowers are beautiful. We could live comfortably forever. So that sounds sweet until he's like, I have to kill him because it is the fitting end. Okay, he says, it will be a fitting end to the unwavering love I've offered him till now. It is my duty. I'll sell him out. It's not an easy decision. No one will understand that I only do this out of the strongest love. And then he kills him and sells him out for money. I would do it too. Jeju also appears in the 2006 anime Death Note, which is an adaptation of the 2003 manga. In episode 25, Elle washes Light's feet for him after it rains, in a direct allusion to Jesus and Judas. So this scene is unique to the anime and was nowhere in the manga, so they did this on purpose, intentionally, for whatever reason. Light betrays Elle shortly after the scene by plotting his death. Jesus and Judas also appear in the 2008 manga Billy Bat. So, it's about a comic book artist who believes he may have unintentionally plagiarized the character Billy Bat, and he comes to Japan to seek permission to use the Billy Bat from the original creator. He is embroiled in a series of murderous crimes and a prophecy regarding the bat. We don't actually know what is going on in the larger scheme of Billy Bat, because we only made sure to check the chapters that featured Jesus and Judas, which are chapters 14 and 15 to my knowledge. A child named Judas lives in a world where an anointed one, the Lord, is prophesied, and every day the authorities kill suspects after they are sold out by their men. A cycle of betrayal is perpetuated. Judas asks the man who his image of God is, to which the man draws a bat, which is the answer that Judas sought. So, in the end, the Jesus figure and Judas agree to the betrayal beforehand, a la the secret gospel of Judas Iscariot, and the Jesus explains that he had never seen the image of God, but only drew what was on Judas' mind. The bat shows up and fucks with our heads. Again, I have no idea what is going on, but look at them kissing, I guess.
Where do I even begin with Hida's martyrism? If we dissect Tokyo Ghoul's Jeju adjacency, we'll be here for one more hour, so I'll just recite the things that this manga compels Host E to talk about monthly. The sacrificial act of letting yourself be eaten by the person you love. In one way, it's debasing yourself to sustenance, but in another way, and probably from the perspective of the person doing the eating, you've been elevated to something holy. I feel so ill thinking about this. Being ready to die for someone is bad enough. Dying for someone, not at their own hands, but by mouth and teeth, you're literally letting yourself be torn apart or deformed bit by bit, just so this person can survive to the next day. What the fuck is wrong with him? No, cause you don't understand. Kaneki gay baiter self was given Hide's whole dying charred body to chew off, and the fucker went for the mouth. Like, why are you so intensely going for the mouth? It's not the same. You don't understand the complexity and the sheer gay bait of offering your flesh up to someone who will treat it as a simple meal. You are giving your whole life so this person can begin theirs anew. Oh my God, Hida is what Catholics want Jesus to be. And to add to how judgy they are, here is a quote from the aforementioned Dazai Osamu's An Urgent Appeal to describe Hida. But I know that there's nothing to be gained from following you. Yet I cannot bring myself to leave you. Something must be wrong with me. If you were to disappear from this world, then I should die immediately as well. I could not live on. But some things never change. The dark of night, for instance, or the feel of the wind in your hair. Grin could feel the heat coming off Shinya's back. It was a reminder that his friend was still alive. Grin increased the demon's strength slightly and strained his ears. He could hear Shinya's blood pumping and his heart beating beneath the sound of the rushing wind. Again, Grin felt as if he had done the right thing in bringing Shinya back, that he had made the right choice, even if the world had ended. The correct path or Grin? You choose first. Mahiru finally opened her mouth. And what did you choose, Mr. High and Mighty? Grin. Shinya replied without missing a beat. I'm an idiot, aren't I? Laugh all you want. I don't care. Gurren continued to count the beats of Shinya's heart. It had been 50 beats since he started. 51, 52, 53. Supposedly, the resurrection would only keep them alive for 10 years. Gurren wondered how many heartbeats that was. Gurashin is just too much. They are friends and comrades in a post-apocalyptic world with vampires and the such. Due to certain events, Shinya dies and Gurren sacrifices the whole world to resurrect Shinya. Shinya comes back to life and isn't aware of what took place. The following will be taken from the Gurashin wiki fan page because I do not have the power to think about their entirety at the moment. Anyway, fast forward to Shinya begging his demon to give him more power, which results in an internal monologue. Shinya's demon, Byakumaru, tells Shinya that he acts as if he is in love with Gurren. Shinya just laughs and replies with something that can be roughly translated to, "It's just longing." His body language shows just how much he cares about Gurren. He puts his desire into one final sentence. I will never give up on Gurren. The scene extends Shinya's feelings about Gurren from the light novels to the manga. It had already been described that Shinya admires Gurren, had realized what made him so attractive, and that he had found purpose in life because he had met Gurren. See the light novel Catastrophe at 16. This scene shows how much Shinya values Gurren and how strong his feelings about him are. Shinya personally admits to having one regret, that if he died now, being that since Gurren hadn't given up on life yet, Shinya would lose if he died first. Due to certain events, Gurren is possessed and Shinya is forced to fight him. And even though Shinya gets a power-up from his strong desire to save Gurren, he is defeated by Gurren's chains. When Gurren is about to leave, he tells Shinya that, "I will, like always, let myself drown in my own power to save you." You could argue that no one is Jesus adjacent in the pair because they both seem willing to do whatever it takes to save the other. But they could be seen as what Jeju could have been if Jesus chose to break free from the story and abandon humankind. Especially because instead of betraying Shinya directly, Gurren betrayed the world by ending and sacrificing everyone for Shinya, which is the opposite of what went down with Jeju. Quoting an urgent appeal again, Gershon is definitely, "No one will understand that I do this out of only the strongest love. No, I don't need anyone to understand. My love is pure. It's not something so shallow that it needs to be understood by anyone."
Let's talk about Tahi Sayhate's debut novel, Astral Season, Beastly Season. It's about two high schoolers who engage in a killing spree to help cover up and eventually take the blame for their favorite idol, Mami Aino, committing murder. Well, only one boy does all the killing. The main characters Morishita and Yamashiro are our Jesus and Judas, and you can say that Mami Aino is sort of their god. Morishita has no qualms about murder and is open to any and all suggestions from Yamashiro, who feels queasy about it but wants to set Mami Aino free. Their approaches in these parasocial relationships differ greatly. Morishita genuinely likes Mami and how hard she works, almost in a blind fan sort of way. Some statements from him counteract this, and he's arguably the hardest person to understand in Astral Season, Beastly Season, and they spend the entirety of the second half trying to do just this. And while he's like that, Yamashiro likes being Mami's fan because he can feel somewhat superior to her. His admiration is condescending. Yamashiro struggles to accept that Mami committed murder because it would make her superior and more capable than him. When they have to decide on a final victim, Morishita gives Yamashiro the choice to kill him. In the end, Yamashiro chooses to be killed instead. Throughout the book, his influence on Morishita, whether or not influence is an appropriate word remains to be seen, saves several of their classmates who were candidates for murder victims, and his final act is the key to saving Mami Aino herself. Morishita is locked up for a bit before he is sent to psych ward or mental facility. No one knows the details of their pact, much less the idol they did it for, and Yamashiro is never credited for his sacrifices. And no matter how hard anyone tries, no one left can understand Morishita. Yamashiro and Morishita are not overly similar to Jeju, more rather the Jeju portrayed in The Secret Gospel of Judas. Astral Season, Beastly Season is really a great novel, and we almost feel bad about putting it in this deranged video. The novel is brilliant, and we would love to dedicate a legitimate analysis to it. It makes a lot of points about what it means to live as a person and whether or not you can reach an understanding with others. We could argue that Yamashiro and Morishita are the only ones in the novel to truly know each other, but I think that there are definitely arguments against that, and it could be said that knowledge does not equal understanding. I believe to the end that Yamashiro was unable to understand Morishita, but they did achieve a special connection. This is just like The Secret Gospel of Judas Iscariot for real. Sorry, Tahi Sayate, your work is really amazing. Up next, we have the shonen manga Jujutsu Kaisen, which was created in 2018 by the mangaka Akutami Gege. So, if you look at this manga cover and don't see the parallels to biblical lore, I don't know what to say anymore. The characters in question are Gojo Satoru and Geto Suguru, who met in Jujutsu High School and were classmates, partners even, and as Gojo says, the strongest. Gojo is from a clan of sorcerers. He's arguably the most powerful sorcerer in history, and the event of his birth alone unsettled the Force. He could kill weak curses by breathing on them, etc., etc. So he was born into this lifestyle, and he's much laxer about his unspoken rules than Geto, who was raised normaler in comparison. There's major beef about a star vessel and a deadbeat father coming for Gojo, but we will avoid non-Jeju necessitated spoilers. So the death of someone in the series, not mentioning who, severely messes Geto up, and he tries to justify the philosophy of jujutsu sorcerer lifestyle to himself. In doing so, he goes on many solo missions separate from Gojo, who is de facto the strongest on his own, questions himself, goes off the deep end. His technique also revolves around eating and manifesting curses, so you can understand why he was corrupted. Eventually, he forms a deep hatred for anyone who isn't a sorcerer, calling them monkeys, commits mass murder, and betrays the institution. This culminates in him and Gojo having a breakup outside a KFC in Shibuya. In Jujutsu Kaisen 0, Geto appears again to try and seize Yuta Okotsu and his curse, Rika. He fails, and Gojo kills him off-screen on their own terms. It's all about the betrayal and the trust in spite of that betrayal and the greater good. Like, these are core jeju principles, guys. Geto appears again in the main series as an antagonist, but is it really Geto? My 6 eyes tell me you're Geto Suguru, but my soul knows otherwise. This gay-ass statement leads to Gojo, the strongest sorcerer alive, being boxed for 800 days and still going. His homoeroticism nerfed him.
It was a simple prayer from the start after all. Admiration gradually disappearing now. As the curtains rising up, we'll leave this quiet meeting place and bid farewell. If we are to be separated, if we are to lose our way, I'll make sure we'll be connected this time, no matter how many times it takes. If you'll stay here with me, if I could just keep you from leaving, you could still be saved by this feeling that no one else knows. For this Vocaloid song, we will be referencing Lily, or Twitter user SpannerGone, who has given us permission to include her tweets in our video. Thank you again, Lily. We have mentioned Dasai Osamu's on Urgent Appeal more than just a few times, and the song lore is contestably an allusion to the said literature work. The video starts with 2 characters, the Yellow Maid who represents Judas, and the White Witch who represents Jesus. The Yellow Maid is running through a forest while the White Witch is being led to her death. She is also shown with a fish earring, which is known as an early symbol of Christ. Yellow is a color associated with betrayal, hence the yellow accents on the maid, while the white and red the witch wears are associated with divinity. Later on in the video, the witch walks to her death, which appears to be a nod to the carrying of the cross. 3 candles are shown at the beginning and end of the video, the first being lit up and at the end being blown out, which may be a reference to the 3 days of resurrection. The maids shown are all positioned like Da Vinci's famous The Last Supper painting, with the witch being in the place of Christ, as well as the yellow maid being in the place of Judas. The witch is also shown with the same pose as Christ in the mentioned painting. Those are only a quarter of the allusions and references of the music video to Jeju and An Urgent Appeal by Dazai Osamu. We would discuss everything, but we are also insanely afraid of getting copyright strikes if we play the whole MV. So just check out Lily's thread for all the details and watch the MV yourself. Another Vocaloid song is Judas by Sequoia Cathedral, which was sang by Kaito V3. How does it feel to judge people? I'm gonna throw up. How unpleasant the deep abyss is. Give me a cupful of misfortune. Even if I hide it, the public knows too many of my sins. I'm sure you knew it's been exposed since the beginning, don't you? If I praise you, then someday the heavens will be on my side. If I pray and dance, my stomach will be full sooner or later. I wonder, is that hatred? Is it? I must hate you down to the core. If that's the case, let's go out to get something to eat, you and me. We're both rotting away endlessly. We're fighting each other indirectly. Once I return to hell, even you scold me for it. Oh, forgive me, Jesus. Fun fact, a part of the lyrics are written and sang differently. Itoshi 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 omoyo is written as the lyrics on the music video, but Nikue 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 Jesus was sang. Itoshio Moyo literally means my beloved Lord or dear, darling, beloved, precious, while nikui jisatsu literally means detestable or hateful Jesus or I hate you Jesus.
We have another song named Judas, which is more popular. It was released in 2011 by Lady Gaga, and the music video depicts Lady Gaga choosing Judas over Jesus. You can see a man kiss Judas in the music video. Look. The last song we have was released in 2001 by Antimatter and is titled God is Coming. There are only these lyrics in the song. Just these lines, I'll read them out loud. Judas, Judas, don't you want me? Why can't you look me in the eye? I only tried to get to the other side. I only tried to survive.
Before Suzaku killed Lelouch, he killed his dad, who initially wanted to die a martyr for his country because he believed that it was right. This can be counted as the first ultimate betrayal. He thought that it would stop the war and nobody would die. So even though he was young, he felt that he was responsible for everybody's lives and that nobody else but him knew what was right. Despite this, he still feels immensely guilty for killing him, and the irony of it is that because he betrayed his father for his country, he wants to die himself so he can face redemption, which is why he sacrifices himself for Lelouch in the first episode. He loves Lelouch and cares for him, but ultimately wants to die because he can't forgive himself for what he did in the past. And when Suzaku has his second ultimate betrayal, this time with Lelouch, he adopts a similar attitude. This is what's right. This is what needs to be done, despite my love for you. What's different about this though is that this is also the reaction to his betrayal because he felt betrayed by somebody he loved, who he was building a world for, only to realize that they were the only thing in his way all along. Lelouch thought Suzaku was disillusioned and a martyr that wanted to die for a cause he believed was right. This is where Suzaku can also be Jesus, because both of their betrayals are also a reaction to the other's betrayal in their eyes. Suzaku betrays Lelouch, but only because Lelouch is betraying Suzaku, and vice versa. And even though they do love each other, their morals are constantly at a stalemate where they believe the other is disillusioned and their own beliefs are superior to the other. Except that in Lelouch's case, what he is doing is ultimately more impactful and he gains more followers and believers than Suzaku does. Zero eventually becomes a figure of anti-imperialism rather than a person. So in the end, he is the Jesus that is betrayed by Suzaku. And just as Jesus, he does so intentionally to prove his dedication to his cause. Jesus is to God as Lelouch is to world peace. And just as Jesus can't exist without his most devoted disciple, Lelouch can't exist without his Knight of Zero, because Suzaku understands and loves him the most, and that's why his betrayal to him is necessary.
Hannibal, which was released in 2013 and was mostly directed by Brian Fuller, also has its fair share of jeju. This culminates in Season 2, Episode 13, Mizumona. So we can't get really into the details of what's happening here because there's so much that happens in Hannibal. They take turns gaslighting each other for like 2 seasons. Hannibal's really fucked up in the head, so is Will, and there's this poor girl named Abigail who gets dragged into everything. So let me just tell you what Hannibal tells Will in this episode. A place was made for all of us together. I gave you a rare gift, but you didn't want it. You would deny me your life. Walk away, I'll make no plans to call on you. But if you stay, I'll kill you. And at this point, he stabs Will in the stomach, gently holds him in the kitchen, and then drops him, says more things. This girl is there. I think the girl gets killed. So, it's very jeju, very betrayal. It has everything. Jesus and Judas also appear in the Bible, which was released in 2013 and directed by Roma Downey and Mark Burnett. It is, as you may have guessed, a portrayal of the Bible. Maybe a little more homoerotic? I couldn't tell you. It's just here because it's a regular jeju kiss and we can't leave any of those out.
If you didn't have the honor and misfortune of growing up with exposure to Kagura Project, I will save you the heartache. Due to certain circumstances, Ayano has to rely on her adoptive younger brother Kano to pretend as her by transforming into her using his abilities at school while she goes off and investigates stuff regarding their personal lives. Stuff happens, Ayano dies, and her brother has to act as her dead body. Tired and traumatized, Kano blows up on the way home when Shintaro, who is Ayano's friend and also her love interest, if you will, teases him, not knowing, of course, that it's not even Ayano because she's dead. Kano tells Shintaro, "It's all your fault," using Ayano's face, and basically traumatizes him when Shintaro later finds out that Ayano is dead because he thinks that those were her last words to him. Time skip, and somewhere along the line, this happens. Something about his act was familiar. I don't think Ayano ever noticed, but Shintaro always smiled at her in a different way from all of us. I never really dug that much. That's why I was always so cold to him when I started posing as her in school. Now I felt bad about being so mean to him in her form. I'm hopeless. But despite all that, Shintaro let it slide. And now, he was smiling at me. Just like that. I can't win against him. He's invincible. Their jeju adjacent quote is, "He too is trapped in the story, but he chose to love, and I do not hate him." Shintaro saves the world, and Kano never stood a chance against a story that was meant to happen again and again. He betrays Shintaro by keeping the truth from him even after they meet again and arguably become friends. And yet, he views Shintaro as someone with a smile that he will never be able to win against. A smile that chose to love his newfound friends. A smile that Kano cannot hate.
We'll finish off our review of Jeju in media with the 2019 hit game Fire Emblem Three Houses. We're going to discuss the characters Felix and Dimitri. So, to preface, let's dig into their history. Dimitri is the crown prince of the Holy Kingdom of Fergus, and Felix is the son to Duke Feldarius, the king's right hand. Their families have been intertwined since the founding of the kingdom, as Felix's ancestors have always served Dimitri's ancestors. Felix never thought that he would have to grow up to be the next shield of Fergus, so he grew up with Dimitri and they were friends. But then everything changes when Glenn, Felix's older brother, dies in order to protect Dimitri. This throws a wench into Felix and Dimitri's relationship because Duke Feldarius' insistence that Glenn died a honorable death impedes on Felix's ability to mourn his older properly, and he begins to question the very ideals that he was raised upon. He struggles with and eventually rejects the roles he is supposed to grow into. Dimitri, on the other hand, is like the super traumatized kid who has a lot on his shoulders, is dealing with insane survivor's guilt, seeing ghosts that demand revenge. He's basically just expected to be the world's savior despite his sheer mental illness. He's kind of like Jesus. So, there are two possible endings here. So the happy ending is in the Blue Lion's route, and Felix there eventually forgives Dimitri for a lot of things. And there's even a possibility that when Dimitri becomes king, Felix becomes his right hand and serves him, and when Dimitri dies, he's even sadder than the queen, which is questionable on a lot of levels. But what we're focusing on is the betrayal, which is possible in the Crimson Flower route, where Felix is recruited into the Black Eagles and not in the Blue Lion's house. In post-time skip, Dimitri is assumed dead for a bit, like Jesus. If you play your cards right, you can get him to have a confrontation with Felix on the battlefield. Felix expresses that he's willing to leave everyone behind for his own morals, and Dimitri only works up the resolve to try and kill him after that. Their dynamic is very jeju in the sense that Felix is obligated to serve Demetri. He doesn't want to because it goes against his character and his morals, but at the same time, he wants to because he cares about him. You can compare them to An Urgent Appeal by Dazai Osamu, and also the Judas comic, which was released in 2017. In both situations, the wronged party accepts unjust yet inevitable circumstances, and a happy ending is only achieved when he forgives the other person.
Farewell, your beastliness.
What is going on with him?
Now that we have gone over the representation of jeju in various forms and media over the ages, we go on to our next topic of discussion. Why is jeju so prevalent? What makes betrayal so interesting and appealing to the LGBT+ community? It's easy to say that of course gay people like Judas, the church doesn't like him either, the enemy of my enemy is my friend and all that. But there has to be more to it, seeing as how the trope continues to thrive. We'll talk about our personal opinions on this. First of all, the gay pretender are not gay pretending. We are gay. And if you look into our previous videos, we feel very passionately about betrayal and deception.
Queerness has been associated with societal betrayal. For some people, the experience of coming to terms with one's sexuality or gender very much feels as if you've been deceiving yourself and the people around you for your entire life. This feeling of inexplicable guilt is what makes us resonate with Judas's character. Judas is the sinner of the New Testament, the devil incarnate, the betrayer whose name no man will take ever again. The Judas comic offers another interesting insight. How would you feel if you were made so crucially flawed? If your whole life and experiences were meant to make you this way? Judas was intended to be evil so that Jesus could die, later ascend to heaven, and make that sacrifice for humanity. We question if he is the only one to have made sacrifices.
Portrayal of Judas over the centuries has gone from simply evil traitor to things more complex. You could consider him an object of pity, if in somewhat a condescending way. You could use him as the symbol for God's ultimate mercy should you pick a route where Judas somehow doesn't go to hell. But if we chalk Judas' life up to a story, in that he was used for the story, he becomes a somewhat sympathetic character. He was made so that his treachery was inevitable and even necessary for the greater good. What is one human sacrifice, or two counting Jesus, even if he goes to heaven anyway, in the face of saving everyone else in history? We say that it couldn't have been helped. In fact, it even feels like a bit of a victory, like a sick gotcha moment. It feels like redemption. Every sin is justified because it was preordained to occur. That brings a mixed bag of feelings, doesn't it? Of course, this justification doesn't just apply to gay people, but I'd say it's clear why we seek it out so much.
Once again, thank you all for spending your Holy Week with the Gay Pretender. If you're not watching this during Holy Week, then whatever. We hope that we have given you a lot to think about. We don't even care if you hate us, because if you've made it to this point, then you've given us a view.
If you somehow appreciated this video, we're very grateful for your support. We want money terribly, and we have gone through many lengths to not get copyright strikes. So please share our channel to anyone who you feel might enjoy our content. #monetizegaypretender.
Among the things we have done to avoid copyright strikes is hire our lovely friend Mochatonic to sing some portions for us. They are innocent, at least in terms of jeju, and are really talented, so here are their social media links if you ever want to look them up. They host video game streams on Twitch as well.
It was late. Kind of. Okay. I'm 500 centimeters. Oh wait, okay, extract, my bad. She's not in a condition to talk. Are you okay? Ah. Ooh. Sorry. I'm sorry. Don't be afraid, I won't do anything. I gently placed my hand on her trembling back.
guess it's farewell.